now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Trees No bueno. There we go. There we are. Yeah, this sound thing is a little frustrating. So let us begin again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Good morning, Atlas. Good morning, Anne. Hi, Jackie. Yes, can you hear me now? I think you guys should be able to hear me. Awesome. Thank you, Atlas, for the confirmation. How is everyone doing? I was just saying that everyone seems to be taking a little bit of a break this morning in terms of getting up and at 'em. So good morning to Jean. Good morning, Anne. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today's Thursday. Can you believe it? We're almost on the downside of this week. Tomorrow's Friday and that's it. So it's kind of crazy. We've had a very, very interesting week, obviously, because of the storm. And near miss with that. So a lot of people were out and about yesterday, still taking photos. I saw a few people send me, a video clip from TikTok of an individual who was out by the water. It looks like it was the waterfront. And, they were standing there getting crashed into by waves. So that's not impressive. I'm still trying to figure out this light situation, by the way. So yes, that was not impressive. I know a lot of individuals were basically saying, why on earth? You guys can see how my light is totally off this morning. A lot of individuals were saying, why on earth are people out there taking chances in terms of the weather? And I guess people, like I said the day before, like a little bit of excitement, and that is what they're looking for. It is what it is, but let me just have a quick message here. So there was one photo that was there was one photo that was shared with us that captured everyone's attention. It's an amazing shot. Sometimes you just grab a photo at the most opportune time and it is just like, wow, check this out. Isn't that beautiful? That just shows you the power of Mother Nature. And it was just taken, like you can't even time this. I mean, it just happens. The wave action is just in the perfect direction. Someone actually said that it looks like a turtle. And it kind of does look a little bit like a turtle. Hi, Rhonda from Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good morning to Anne-Marie. Jackie's here, of course. Susan, Sue Arch, of course, says, love looking at all of the Cayman flags in your studio. Nothing more beautiful, much more beautiful than our islands. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Can I tell you something? I was actually told, and this is something that I did not even know, that apparently the flag in the background, which, like I said, is a little dark. Everything looks a bit dark today. I need to sort out my lighting. I think I need more lights in here, especially background lighting. But yes, I was told that the flag that I'm actually using in the background is the wrong flag. It's supposed to be the ones that you see on the computer screens with the white around it. So it looks like I actually need to source another flag. I was thinking to myself, who sells the wrong flags in the Cayman Islands? But I've been told that from a very reliable source. So I need to see how I can go about making sure that I have the correct flag up. So yeah, Maria, thank you so much. Hi, Louie. Thank you for tuning in. Ms. Dolores is here from Texas. Good morning to you. And good morning, Beulah. And I see tons more of you tuned in and you are just silently watching. So listen, the internet blew up last night. I did not watch the debates. I'm not sure how many of you actually got a chance to watch the vice presidential debate between Kamala Harris and what's his name? Pence. I can't remember his first name right now, but you know who I'm talking about. And basically the internet blew up because a fly landed on his head. And truly, I mean, you cannot make this stuff up in the world of politics or anywhere, you know. It seems like that eclipsed everything else that was going on in the debate. Most people said that Kamala won the debate. Other people have indicated that they were a little bit disappointed in both of them because there were times that neither of them answered the question. And I think that's so interesting because even sometimes when I watch something like a Miss K-Man pageant or whatever, an interview, most people have in their head a response that they want to give. So when the question is asked of them and they just kind of hear like one key word, that's a trigger automatically in their brain to start talking about one particular thing. And I thought I did see maybe about 2 or 3 minutes of it afterwards, like someone was kind of like reviewing it. And so I saw like towards the end, some of the questions that were being posed. And I think even Kamala did this. I think a lot of people like her. And she's a former district attorney, as far as I recall, a former prosecutor. And so you would think that she would be much more equipped at answering the question, not just giving a response, but actually answering the question. And this is one of those things that if you've ever done like a debate class or anything of the sort, you just learn how to focus in and hone in on the question. And in my mind, the first thing that you have got to do is you actually have to listen to the question intently. And so, like I said, as human beings, our brains are kind of wired in such a way that we will automatically, you know, it's like you go to a job interview. And the question is, because we all think we know all the traditional questions that are coming in, it's anticipation. So I think what happens is anticipation gets the best of us and we have like a pre-rehearsed answer in our heads. And so we're going to push that out there no matter what the actual question is. So if an interviewer asks you the traditional, oh, you know, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Everybody's like ready with the answer to that. But if they put a twist on it and they say, you know what, I'm not going to ask that traditional question, but it's still going to be related to your strengths and weaknesses. So they may ask you, you know, when has there been a time? Because there's a lot of like situational questions now that come into play, especially during job interviews. When has there been a time that your strength has, worked in your favor or vice versa? And because you already have that predetermined answer in your head about what your strengths and weaknesses are, chances are you are going to focus on the question of what are my strengths and weaknesses? And you're still not going to actually answer the question. And I see it all the time. And it's one of those things that when I was in law school, we were always cautioned about, right? Look at the actual question. So sometimes in law school, you get scenarios where you'll be given a situation that you need to respond to. So, you know, Tom's mom leaves a will. And in the will, is said. And you have to then pull out aspects of the law that apply to that situation. And the end question might be, is this a valid will? And so you will have to respond talking about the validity of a will. But once you see that question in your head, is this a valid will? The objective isn't for you to then just dump everything that you know about wills and probates into the question. So it isn't intended for you to just be like, oh, for a will to be valid, you need to have it. No, you still need to look at the specific situation and you will lose points and definitely not score as high a mark on your exam questions if you don't actually look at the exact question that's being asked. And so I think this is a pitfall of people who are involved in debates all the time. And I saw it last night. Like I said, I did not watch the entire debate. I literally only watched a few minutes of it. And I kind of saw that because at one point, Pence even said, oh, and for the record, she hasn't answered the question. And it was like, actually, she didn't. And neither did he for the ones that I saw. But it's because she already had in her head a predefined answer that she wanted to push out there. So she kept harping on her record, her track record of success and what she had accomplished, right? And she always wanted to throw that out there thinking, okay, this is what is going to convince the voters to vote for me. And the question might have actually been something else. So I think there was like once when the moderator actually tried to say to her, you've already said that and you're just not answering the question. So buenos dias, Elizabeth. Hello, Melita. So I think both of them were a little bit guilty of that for sure. But regardless of that, what really took over the entire debate was this fly that decided to land on this poor man's head. OMG. This is like the fly that, you know, just is just unbelievable. This fly landed on his head and it has now eclipsed the conversation entirely. Most of you will not remember anything about the debate last night, except that this fly landed on this man's head. Isn't that amazing? So every single headline this morning, The Guardian says, fly landed on Mike Pence's head becomes VP debate star video. So literally this situation here went viral. I mean, my God, I've never seen anything quite like it. There were so many memes immediately that were created. We grabbed a few last night. And let me just show you a few of them because they are kind of funny. This one is with the member of the Supreme Court that just passed away, Ginsburg, and it says, I sent the fly. So as you guys know, Trump is moving to quickly replace her before he is voted out of office, or if he's voted out of office. He's trying to make the appointment of a conservative judge to the Supreme Court. And obviously she was not a conservative judge. So some of these were so hilarious. There's this one of the little fly holding a sign. So this is Biden Harris. So in other words, that's who he's voting for. Look at this one. That fly is Mike Pence's only Black friend. Oh my God. These were just, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. You honestly cannot make any of this up. These were so hilarious. Here's another one. I just couldn't stand by and listen to his lies any longer. So the fly is being interviewed. So there's that one. Oh my gosh, here's one that I thought was so funny. The fly actually has its own Twitter account already. So someone created a Twitter account for the fly, and by last night, right after the debate, it had 197 followers. My goodness. People just have a lot of time in their hands is all I can think. But it is really, really super funny. Yeah. So it says at Mike Pence fly, I'm a fly, joined October 2020, 197. I wonder how many, let me see how many followers it has now. I bet it's probably got a couple thousand. Let's see, Twitter account here. So the memes and tweets about this were just shocking. You know, CBS News, The Guardian, Slate News, like everybody has carried this. I can't help but wonder if Fox News has done something on it as well. Probably. because it really was the discussion of the night. Yeah. The New York Times has an article, Washington Post. And Washington Post says the fly spent 2 minutes on Mike Pence and it changed its voter registration to Mike Pence's head, tweeted the late night show Stephen Colbert. So this was just unbelievable in terms of the reverb around the world, I would say, of how this happened. So they caught the moment when it happened. I don't know what question it was, but yes, the fly landed on his nice silver hair, and it did not move for 2 minutes. 2 whole minutes, folks. That fly sat there. And I'm surprised that he didn't feel the fly. I mean, that's just so weird. So even the BBC has up this morning, their headline is VP debate, Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence, the outshone by fly. So both of them were eclipsed by the fly. It's just hilarious. There's a photo with Joe Biden holding a fly swatter in his hand. Did you guys see that one? And it says, pitch in $5 to help this campaign fly. And that one's actually hilarious. I think this is actually the Joe Biden. I think this is his real account. So he took a picture, I guess, and made good fun of this. And he basically said, pitch in $5 to help this campaign fly. Total play on words there. So what did you guys think about the debate? Like I said, the fly situation was the eclipse of it all and had everyone literally in stitches. Here you go. Pitch in $5 to help this campaign fly. Oh my gosh. There's another one on Twitter that says, Pence's fly, I'm living free on Mike Pence's head and I'm loving it. There is one that says the fly decides which party loses the election. So I think last time there was a fly. I don't think it landed on her, but I think it might have landed like on a Clinton screen or something. Let me just show you guys this from last time. So this, a lot of people are seeing as a very bad omen for this campaign. And I don't know how Trump will address this, but here you go. The fly decides which party loses the election. Spider-Man has tweeted this. And yeah, this is quite funny. Let me see if I can find the Twitter account. So there you have it, folks. What were your thoughts on this? The memeing must continue until the economy improves, says JD. Let's back up here. Evelyn says she was using strategies. Can't play all your cards. You can't give them Republicans too much information. And the question that she did not answer, I would not answer either. That was a burning question Pence wanted her to answer. I don't know what question that was exactly, but I think when I saw her towards the end, there was probably more than one question that neither of them fully answered. So Louis says, this is a fly that was on the wall. I know, right? To be a fly in that debate room would have been hilarious. Marshall says, I guess he didn't wash his head before he left his home, laughing out loud. Of course, everybody was making the jokes about the SHIT situation and how a fly knows shit. And that's why it was on his head, because he's so full of the BS. I mean, literally the memes, the comments, Evelyn says, holy cow, that was probably her. Yeah, it was hilarious. Hi, Alric. Alric says, these debates remind me that we should have an independent local TV station and Mall Road streaming for the Cayman Islands election debate. Well, we will be covering, and Alric, in case you missed it the day that I said it, is we're actually going to be organizing debates, and we will be encouraging all candidates to participate, and they will be live streamed. So, we will have them in a virtual way so that it's safe, I believe, although now we can go up to 500 people in terms of locations. It might just be easier to, I'm still a bit undecided about whether or not we will do it at a specific location with the parties in person, or if we'll allow them to just join in virtually with the conversation. We don't want any cheating if they do it virtually. That's the only thing. But most people are horrible at answering questions. I have seen it from politicians to, people who you think should be thinking on their feet and can answer a question. They really do not do a good job. Even lawyers, like everybody thinks, oh, a lawyer should know how to answer a question. I find that most people are good at not answering the question, actually. So it is a skill that requires practice. And, for many, many years, I myself was a bit immersed in the art of the conversation in terms of debates and Q&As and that type of thing. And it really does take a minute for an individual to pause and think about what is actually being asked of them. And I think when you're so anxious to respond to the question, instead of taking the 30 seconds that most people should take, 15 to 30 seconds to reflect upon what is actually being asked of you. And so, so that tends to happen. So Louis says the Superfly is alive. Alaric wants to know how important are debates for Cayman voters? Should debates be mandatory for Cayman candidates? Some candidates do not show up for the Chamber of Commerce debate last election. Well, I think when they don't show up, they certainly do so to their detriment. Okay, so yes, I think people. We're going to be talking about the hair thing in a second here, but so people, I think Alaric can certainly make that decision, but they will do so to their own detriment. Like, I don't think anyone who can't answer a question and get involved in a debate, because that's an opportunity for you, the people, to get to know who they are and to see how they can handle pressure and really handle themselves. I get that in the Legislative Assembly, when they get up to argue, they have time to prepare those 2-hour-long speeches because there now is a cap on it. But there'll be other times that they need to represent the people. Like, I'm always so embarrassed, to be quite frank and honest, when I see individuals who are elected to public office get up and they speak like they barely have a high school education. Well, it's probably because a lot of them barely have a nice high school education. And having a high school education doesn't mean that you can't effectively respond to and answer questions. But they have not bothered to hone their skills in any way. And I think that that's really, really unfortunate. We all have available resources. And I get that some people think, oh, it's a natural skill. It's a natural skill for you to be able to get up in front of people and have a discourse and be able to answer questions on the fly, pun totally intended. But I think it's not really about that if you understand how this works. It's more about the fact that you can learn any skill, including public speaking, including debate and question and answering questions in a debate situation. And so, it takes practice. And as they say, well, my aunt used to say anyway, practice makes perfect. So the more you do it, the more, what's what I'm looking for? The more poised you will become and the more proficient you will become at it. So the question about them going to the courthouse. Yeah, I don't know. I can't even remember what question I was listening to that she didn't answer, to be honest. So yes, what I think about the debate, it was more of a campaign spill than answering questions for the American people. Louis, I agree. And I think that's the difficulty of it. Denny says everything will go to shit before it gets better. Good morning, Ingrid. Thank you for tuning in. So Louis says, do virtual debates. Don't do another gathering to spread any COVID. Yeah, I mean, I think the logistics of doing it virtual are definitely a lot simpler for us, for sure. We just book the show and send the link and people join in. Morna had some internet issues. Thank you for tuning in now that you're back up and running. Good morning, Sue. So yes, absolutely, Alric. I think debates for local candidates are important. We will be inviting the candidates to participate in those. And if they don't participate, we will be letting the people know, hey, we sent an invitation to the persons in Savannah, the candidates running, and this person refused. And so it might be a debate of one, if that's the case, depending on how many people are running in a given district. So yes, Lord of the Flies. One of the most interesting comments last night that I thought was absolutely hilarious was, let me just pull this one up. This one is really funny. Someone said on another platform that someone said the remote controlled COVID fly. Someone said, and this is really interesting, my grandmother once said that a bee can explain all day to a fly why honey is better than shit. But at the end of the day, the fly will always pick shit over a flower. And I mean, it's in quotes, so it wasn't me. I think some people were attributing it to me. I actually saw it on another platform, and that was just like so funny. It's so true, and it's so funny at the same time. So here's another one. Let me just pull this one up, and then we're going to move on to the conversation of kids in our schools and how they are dressed and how they look and what they are wearing, because a number of you brought this topic up yesterday, and I want to have this discussion because it's not a topic that we should be having in isolation. It was something that had been brought up earlier as well. So here we go. This one's funny. So this one says, the fly on the phone with his friends like, yes, B, did you see me on TV? This is Krusty Krab. People have time for these memes, I tell you. I do not even know how they do them, but they are hilarious. So that was the highlight of the debate, folks. I hope that you guys took something away from the debate. It is challenging, though. I mean, let's face it. It is challenging when people are questioning you and what you intend to do, what solutions you have, as well as, quite frankly, even on your track record. So, Mike Pence had to defend the record of a president who has done things quite literally that are not defendable. He has acted less than mature at a lot of times, and he's said things that are incorrect. And in fact, Mike Pence did quite a bit of that last night as well. He was repeating a lot of Trump rhetoric and information that is 100% false. So you have to fact check everybody, but unfortunately for the likes of Mike Pence and the president, you have to fact check them a little bit more than usual, because they tend to say things that are literally made up, So here's another one called another Twitter account, Fly on Mike Pence's Head. And the fly said, mother's not happy with me. And then another comment says, does anyone know where I can get a COVID test? I feel like I've been exposed. And believe me, you will be exposed if you hang out with Trump and his boys, because they have been engaging in very reckless behavior when it comes to COVID-19. And that is why some 11 people in his inner circle have now tested positive, his advisors mostly, have now tested positive for COVID in the last week. All right, folks, let's move on from the US vice presidential debates. Good luck to them. We'll see how they're doing. Their election is just it's coming up in November. So I think it's a couple weeks away. I can't wait till it's over. President Trump has actually said, this was the question, Evelyn, that I didn't think she really answered. President Trump has said that even if he loses, he is not going to give up and vacate the presidential seat. And to me, that is just astonishing that a sitting president would basically say that he is going to ignore the rule of law and the provisions that have been in place for hundreds of years that allow for a peaceful handover from one party to the next. And I can't recall, I'm not that old, but I can't recall ever hearing a presidential candidate say that before, that if he loses, he is going to not hand over the presidency. What does that mean even? And so I thought when she answered that question that she really could have done a better job. She talked about people getting out there and voting and the importance of them voting, but that wasn't the question. The question is, even though people are going to get out there and vote, because we know that last time President Trump lost the popular vote by over 3 million votes. And so that's going to happen again. And this time he might actually lose the electoral vote, which is the one that counts in terms of making him president. And if he loses that, he has said that he won't vacate the presidential seat. He won't come out of the White House. So I think she could have done a better question of actually answering that question, right? She focused on encouraging people to get out to vote. That's fine. It was, I think, the last question or the second to the last question. So I guess she was trying to put a little punch in there to say to people the importance of voting. However, I think that in all honesty, what she really needed to focus on was the question, what will you guys do if Mike Pence and his president, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, refuse to leave office, even if the people have spoken otherwise? She could have talked about what laws are in place to ensure a peaceful transition. I would, how I would have answered that question? I would have said that it is absolutely shocking that a sitting president would ever even make such a statement. And that statement alone speaks to who President Trump is. And so, what we need to do is we need to make sure that the Constitution, which lays out the foundation and the supplemental pieces of legislation, they lay out the roadmap for how this peaceful transition has happened for the past 200 plus years in our country. And we all need to be committed, regardless of where you sit politically. We all need to be committed to respecting the legal process, respecting the process. And, it starts with respect of the law, which clearly the sitting president does not have. So I think there were so many better ways of her answering the question, and she didn't exactly answer the question. So yeah, it's astonishing, but this is also a man who has a history, even now with his taxes. The issue of his tax returns is going back because he keeps losing. It is now going back to probably a Supreme Court debate because Trump refuses to give up the information on his taxes. Because the truth of the matter is, the man just does not pay any taxes, and he doesn't want the American people to know his true financial position. Not that those of you who support him would care anyway. Let's be honest, right? If you support President Trump, the fact that he has not paid any taxes in years is not something that's going to sway you one way or the other. You're going to say, oh, well, he's just a savvy businessman. Good for him. Everybody else is like, we're busting our balls, working hard, and paying our taxes, paying thousands of dollars a year potentially in taxes. And this man who claims to be a billionaire, which we know he isn't, but despite that, he certainly owes way more taxes than he pays. So absolutely interesting. Lots of issues facing the US, just like we have lots of issues facing the Cayman Islands. And we will certainly be focused on those. I saw this one statement this morning from the Miami Herald. Miami-Dade is one storm away from a housing catastrophe. Nearly 1 million people are at risk. So nearly 1 million people are living in affordable and market rate housing, could be left homeless if a major hurricane hits Miami-Dade County. And, a lot of people say, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, if you don't understand the trickle-down effect of what happens around the world, then, it's an eye-opener for sure. Just trying to get a quick fix on some other headlines. So President Trump, speaking of virtual debates, which I think is a good potential option for us here, President Trump has said, I am not going to do a virtual debate. President Trump said after the Presidential Debate Commission said next week's event would be held remotely. So the Commission on Presidential Debates has indicated that they will be having a virtual one. And once again, President Trump is not going to play game. So he doesn't believe in following any kind of rules. He's going to do his own thing. And I guess a lot of people like the fact that he is a completely rogue individual. And I think being a rogue individual is, one trait that maybe some people like. And I think there's a difference between being a rogue individual when you're right and being a rogue individual when you're just dead wrong, right? So you guys know me. I don't always toe the line. I believe that people should be individuals and you all have a voice and an opinion and you're entitled to that. And I do believe up to a certain point that there are people who have a keen interest in shutting down your voices. And so you've got to find your voice and you've got to speak up. But there has to be an element of truth in what you're standing for and what you're speaking up about. Your ability to speak up for things that are not true and have no factual basis, well, doesn't really carry a whole lot of merit. And so President Trump, even when he's wrong, is a rogue individual. And I think that that's wrong. He should try to be on the right side of the law. But he has basically said, the commission has said that because of health and safety of all involved, in other words, the man just came out of the hospital for COVID. He is super high risk. They were going to abandon plans on Thursday for the in-person debate, which is set for Miami on October the 15th. And he is refusing to do that. So that's a week from today. And what they would do is they would set them up at separate locations and then allow them to, the cameras are obviously still there and whatever. But President Trump, who just tested positive for the coronavirus, immediately dismissed the plan, calling the idea of a remote debate ridiculous. Trump, what's ridiculous is the fact that you have exposed potentially hundreds of people at fundraisers and meetings in the past week to the coronavirus, and you still don't care. You still think that you are on an episode of, what was his show called? You're Fired? Whatever the heck that ridiculous show was called. And, he's playing to the cameras and he thinks that he is a celebrity, a reality star, TV star still, and not president of the United States. That is what is ridiculous. But anyway, he's now accusing the debate commission without evidence of seeking to protect his Democratic opponent. Protect him from you and from the coronavirus? What would be wrong with that? It's like this man has no concept of how he is fortunate, very fortunate, that he's able to get the best medical attention, experimental drugs and whatever. But there are other people who don't have that, or they may have a compromised immune system or not. They might just be an unlucky number, and they are going to succumb to COVID and the coronavirus. And I guess maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he's thinking right now that's the only way that he's actually going to win the presidential debates is by giving Joe Biden, who's a couple years older than him, the coronavirus, and that maybe if Joe Biden succumbs to it, then he has no opponent to lose to. So he was quoted as saying, "I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating is all about," as though he's an expert. He said, "You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And it's not acceptable to us." So we'll see. He claims now that he learned of this virtual debate idea just this morning. So this is breaking news, by the way, that he learned of it just this morning, although his team were already advised of the changes. So I don't know why he would have just learned about it, and his team knew about it from yesterday. So now he's acting like this is shocking news to him. Seems like they're not always communicating very well in his team also. So his campaign manager, Bill Stepien, I think it's how he pronounces it, denounced the debate commission as swamp creatures. This is how low and ridiculous this whole entire process has gotten, who were seeking to protect Mr. Biden, calling the move to a virtual debate pathetic. They say the safety of all involved can easily be achieved without canceling a chance for voters to see both candidates go head to head. We'll pass on this sad excuse to bail out Joe Biden and do a rally instead. So they're saying that they're not going to even participate in the next presidential debate. So going back to Alric's point, what does that say about a candidate if they refuse to engage in a debate, regardless of the format? Now, here's a bit of historical information that you might find interesting. A presidential debate with candidates in different locations is not unprecedented. So in other words, it's happened before. All the way back in 1960, the third debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon was held remotely. So Kennedy debated from a television studio in New York, and Nixon appeared from Los Angeles. And a split screen camera feed allowed viewers to watch both candidates simultaneously, with the men filmed on a pair of identical sets. The moderator of that debate, who is Bill Shadow of ABC News, conducted the proceedings from a third studio in Chicago. So if it was done in 1960 with no issues, and here we are, how many years later? I think President Trump should be okay with the potential remote debate happening. So, of course, we know, like I just said, that was 60 years ago. Is that for real? Wow. 60 years ago? Is my math right? You guys know I suck at math, right? So I always have to double check myself. And I'm like, that's 60 years ago? 1960 to 2020 is 60 years ago. Wow. And the technology was there 60 years ago. So, you know, we definitely have it now. And everybody's going to look better, and it's going to be quite seamless. But the members of the production crew, of the commission's production crew, who must work in person at the debate sites, have objected to the safety risk involved. And this is one of the reasons why they're now going to do it as a virtual debate. So, you know, we'll see. He's got a week to change his mind. And you know, Trump, he changes his mind like he changes his underwear. Every day, it's a different situation. So Sue says Pence is Trump puppet or his lackey lapdog. Hi, Atlas. So Atlas talks about manipulation of the ballots. Then he won't be going along with that. But listen, this whole concept of voter fraud is something that is largely made up in the heads of Trump and his supporters. There's been no evidence of widespread voter fraud. I mean, I think the US does a pretty good job of, implementing all the checks and balances to make sure that voter fraud doesn't happen. And if anyone who's going to commit voter fraud, it's more than likely to be him and his supporters, let's be quite frank and honest here, than anyone else. Joshua says Cayman is living back in 1970. Their parents are dinosaurs. I'm not sure what that comment was about. Irvlin says he's being ridiculous. Apprentice. Oh, there you go. There's the show. Right. I never watched his show, so. Hey, Sophia, we're all good here in the 3, 4, 5. How are you? And thank you, Marcia, for joining us as well. We always appreciate your positivity, Marcia. Now let's talk about what's happening right here in the Cayman Islands. So yesterday morning, oops, my apologies. I attended an awesome event. In case you guys missed it, it was the 10th annual inauguration event for the Boys to Men program. Now, if you don't know what Boys to Men is, basically it is a program that was started by Christopher Murray, who's a school counselor and pastor outside of school, where he felt like young men in the community, not young men, boys in the high schools, really were struggling with transitioning into manhood. So from high school, from year 8 through 11, they start to, society starts to expect more of them as they grow up. They have more responsibilities, there are higher expectations, even legally, in terms of what they can and can't do. And he felt like there were some concerns about how they were adjusting and how they were doing. And I think he has a right to be concerned. All we have to do is look at Northwood Prison and see that the vast majority of men in that facility are Cayman men. And we can see the struggles of them becoming single parents, getting involved in gang activity and all sorts of other things that are just not good for them and good for the community at large. So Mr. Murray started this program, this Boys to Men program, and it allows them to, and we'll have to have him on the show one day, but it basically gives them different things like etiquette training. They get to do community work, which some of them have never done before. They might get involved in, there's a mentorship aspect to it as well. Simon Miller from the Cayman Islands National Drug Council is also very much involved in the process. I saw Dr. Tomlinson there yesterday. I think he's on their board, so he's one of the persons involved also. So last week we got an invitation from Mr. Murray to attend this event, and we were extremely delighted for the invitation. Last year we actually did, I put the link in here, by the way, we actually did we did live coverage of the dinner. And so it culminates at the very end with them having a nice dinner they did it last year at the Ritz-Carlton with the best woman in their life, which is their moms. And, they had like a rose presentation ceremony, fine dining with mom, and they gave their mothers a rose, and each young man had to get up and say, why he loves his mom as much as he does. And some of them were so touching, and they really brought you to literal tears, because, these are young men who said, listen, mom, I know I haven't been perfect and you've really struggled with me, oftentimes as a single mom, but, I love you, and I will try my best to live up to your expectations of me and to be a better young adult. And so, that is good news. So they had their 10th annual, and I mean, people like Seaford Russell was in the first cohort. So he was in the first group that did it. And so yesterday was the 10th annual event, and they did like a tie ceremony. So they all put on ties that say Boys to Men, and the different men who were in the audience came forward and assisted them with putting on their ties. So Kenneth Bryan was there, David White was there, Miss Barbara Connolly was there, some of the Georgetown representatives, and they all fitted their ties for them, helped them put on their ties. And I was so proud to see Kenneth in particular, having conversations with the young men that he was helping to put on their ties, giving them a pat on the back and say, keep up the good job, fixing their ties properly for them. And you would be surprised at how many of these young men do not even know and have had no experience of even no experience of even putting on a tie ever, because maybe they don't own a tie if they've never been to an event where a tie was required. And I think it's important for children to be exposed to as many life experiences as possible. And I say this from personal experience, having been in an opportunity. I mean, I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things that I really loved about the US in particular is when I went to school in the US, through our school, we got to do a lot of things. So I know that I've mentioned to you guys before, I grew up with my aunt in Tampa, and we were predominantly in an African-American community. But I was not going to school that was predominantly African-American. I was bused, like literally, especially in my my elementary school years, I was bused like an hour's drive away. So every morning I had to get up at the crack of dawn and get ready in the mornings that it was cold, and you had to put on your jacket and your little mittens and hats. Because listen, the temperature in Tampa can drop into the 20s or the teens. And so there were years I'd be like freezing my little bum off, in the 6th and 7th grade. Well, no, 7th grade would have been middle school, so younger than that. But like the 5th and 6th grade, and you had to get up and you had to get ready and you had to go to school every single day. And there were a lot of experiences that we got to engage in middle and high school that I think were great. Sometimes they involved nature excursions. So I remember going to different crocodile facilities. I'm trying to think what other ones we did, but we did a lot of different things. So we got exposed to a lot. I always thought, it's fun for a kid to have those experiences, which otherwise you may not get to have. Because honestly, my aunt was not going to take me to the crocodile nature facility for me to learn about crocodiles and whatever else. I can't remember all of them now, but she would not have taken me to those type of facilities. So it was either going to be learning about those things as an adult, but in the school system, in the school programs, those opportunities were offered. And those are learning experiences for young people. You get to try something different. You get to learn something. So I loved school field trips and school excursions. They're like, okay, pack your lunch. Today we're going to, wherever. And those are some of the most memorable and fun events for me when I was in school. I mean, yes, the classroom stuff is there and you're learning all the academics of being a student. But those life experiences, those little trips were so meaningful as well. And they add balance to your experience as a young person. So I see this program as very much like that, exposing them to a fine dining environment. I'm always surprised at how many kids can grow up here in the Cayman Islands and have never been to a fine dining restaurant. They don't know which fork you're supposed to use, or even sometimes how to use just the regular fork and knife properly. And I think that's a sad indictment on us as a community, because every child should have the very basics in life to kind of get started with. And to me, dining etiquette is a basic skill that will take you a lot of places when you have to go out to a restaurant. And one day you might have to sit down with someone and have a business meeting, and you need to know how to use a knife and fork and how to cut your steak and how to indicate when you're done with your meal. And, so I think that Mr. Murray, Pastor Murray, as he's often referred to, does a wonderful job with this program, him and his committee and team of individuals. And it continues to grow from strength to strength. This is the 10th year. And with the 10th year now, they've had the most young men ever participate in the program. So now they have a group of 77 young men, which I think is amazing. I think last year it was like a group of 30. So it has grown exponentially. So hats off to him and his team. So good morning. Sue says he went to John Gray, was good friends with my daughter who also went there. Are you referring to Pastor Murray or Seaford? I'm not sure. Right. So these experiences are very, very important. We saw Alaric Lindsay, for example, talked about as a young man, in case you guys missed it, his conversations with, saying that, listen, as a young man, he was exposed to the world of squash, and that world of squash opened up opportunities for him both on and off the court. So not only did he learn, how to play a sport and a skill, but he got to mingle with kids and their parents who otherwise maybe he would not have had the opportunity to have very much contact with. And that contact eventually led him to one day sitting in front of one of the partners at a local accounting firm who gave him a scholarship to go off to university. So these are the connections in life that you cannot always predict that are so incredibly important. So yes, I think that this program is a wonderful program. So when we were live streaming yesterday, I could not help but see that there was a debate going on in the comment section about the hairstyles of the young men at the school. And so that is now what I wish to briefly have a discussion on. And, I think that, listen, I'm of two minds on this. Yes, I did take note of the hairstyles. Some of them were longer than I thought would be permitted at school. The only reason why I took note of them is because last year, if you guys remember, there's a big to-do, a big hoopla or whatever, about the fact that young men were now being subjected to having their hair cut and a hairstyle that, they may not feel 100% like that's what they want. And parents were up in arms about it. And some parents were going on the most about this. And, it even became, I'm trying to remember, I'm going to find the article, because a few parents said that their kids were sent home because their hair wasn't short enough. And I mean, it just appeared that last year, the administration was enforcing it very, very strictly. And then all of a sudden, it's gone from being enforced very, very strictly to hardly being enforced at all based on what we saw yesterday. So I think some of you, let me just see if I can find the articles, who had previously reached out, they're being too strict, this is ridiculous. The students and their parents have now taken it to another extreme, where maybe, I don't know if it's because of COVID, the education ministry or department are now not going to be enforcing it. Listen to the headline last time. There was more than one story on this. In August of 2018, parents advised of new uniform dress code for government schools. And in that dress code, it talked about the hair being, a certain length. And then by August 28th, just as school had gotten started in 2018, so that was 2 years ago, my apologies. After several boys were remanded at Clifton Hunter High School and being sent home, there were those of you who were sharing photos and pictures with Cayman Mall Road saying, this isn't fair. My son is being sent home, and I'm going to show you the difference here. Because you guys might not even remember this story, but here's the link. And yes, there was, let me just pull this up here. So this title was Parents Cry Foul Over Shorter Haircut Requests. So there was a young man here, I'll show you his before and after photos, who was essentially sent home from school because his hair was too long. And I just had a parent just message me when she saw the discussion this morning and said, yeah, my kid was sent home before. So when I saw those hairstyles yesterday, I'm thinking to myself, how is this being permitted? So you can see he had a nice long hair before, and the school said, nope, you got to cut that. So the school had actually said, Principal Pauline Beckford, that the enforced standard is being cut with a number 2 barber's razor. And this 14-year-old young man, on his first day of school, was sent back for having his hair too long. And his cousin was also warned about, the hairstyle. And so, listen, they were not playing last year. I don't know what has happened since then, but I'm going to show you another shot here before and after. It had to be cut, and it had to be cut fairly short. So the ministry, as I recall, was standing behind this initiative, saying that, listen, our young people need to be presentable. They need to understand that there are standards in place for how they look. And the sooner they get used to those standards, the better off they will be, in understanding that in life, you don't always get to pick and choose even how you look. You have to conform to certain standards of behavior. And if the workplace says this is our dress code and this is how you must look and how you must present yourself, then it is what it is. So I did notice the comments. What I wanted to say here was the dress code expectations that they were saying applied to all government schools, as you can see from the top there. And we're going to talk about some of those here in greater detail. What I would say is, I see your comment, Sophia, says that that's not right. Let the youths grow out their hair. It doesn't get in the way of their studies. Too much expats. Clifton Hunter, Miss Beckford is racist. I know from experience. What I'm going to say is this. This was an initiative that didn't come from Miss Beckford. This came from the ministry itself. So this is Juliana O'Connor Connolly, her chief secretaries and so forth. And there were things that they do not permit. I believe, and I absolutely believe in this, that there should be a dress code that is enforced. And I don't care whether you go to private school, public school, or whatever. There is a dress code that is in place for a sensible reason, and the dress code should be enforced. Now, one of the things I love about Cayman schools is that all Cayman schools, the kids wear uniforms. In the US, when I went to school, there were no uniforms, so we had to dress. And of course, sometimes there were kids who would come to school not entirely dressed appropriately. This is before young men believed in having their pants hanging all the way down to their knees. But there were other, ways in which people could dress inappropriately. And yes, if you were dressed inappropriately, the school principal would call you in and you'd either get sent home, potentially even suspended from school, depending on what it was. So why do we care about how our children dress? So Sophia is of the opinion that it doesn't matter, who cares? How does it impact their learning? So on and so forth. I think that it sets a tone for a level of professionalism and societal expectations that they will have to live up to when they go out into the real world. So it is a matter of preparing them for what is to come. Does having long hair interfere with your ability to learn how to do your algebra assignment? Not particularly. It might be a distraction. I don't really know. But I think the overriding logic behind it is that it is really a matter of preparation for the real world. And it also puts people in the right frame of mind, puts the students in the right frame of mind to focus on what they should be focusing on. So instead of someone being distracted by your son's hair that's all the way down his back, they can focus on, what's important. Even during COVID, we saw how not adhering to a dress code was causing problems for school administrators and school teachers. And it wasn't even the students, it was the parents. And this is where I'm going to come full circle with this here in a minute. I hold parents 1,000% responsible for the fact that their children are coming to school dressed in less than an appropriate manner. So yes, your kids are dressed like they're going to the dance hall, to the nightclub. They don't look impressive. And so, that does have a real impact on their ability to be able to focus and learn. Other kids, remember now what happened during COVID, we're seeing you parents, at least one or two of you, trampling around in the background, and I do mean tramp in the background, half naked or in your underwear while your child was trying to do a Zoom class. Now tell me, how is that even remotely appropriate? Come on, parents. Who in their right mind would think that it was okay to walk around in the background of a Zoom meeting in your underwear and barely wearing any clothes? And you've got elementary school, middle school, and teenage boys looking at your mama walking around in her underwear. And somehow some mama out there actually thought that this was okay. We can blame the government. We can blame the education system all we want. But I can tell you, 90% of the issues that our young people are having in this day and age is a direct result of bad parenting. We're going to call a spade here today. If you are allowing your child to get up in the morning and to go to school unkempt, hair too long for boys, earrings, skirts that are too short, all of these issues, it's just like, what else do you expect is going to happen? It is a distraction. Here are 5 positive reasons or 5 benefits of actually having a school dress code. Number 1, a dress code promotes a more serious school atmosphere, which emphasizes academics and promotes good behavior. And I agree with that. The more unkempt a person looks and the more things they have as a distraction, it does distract them from what they are there for, which is to learn. Simple, right? They are there to learn and nothing else. Dress codes have been proven to increase student achievement by encouraging students to concentrate more on their studies and less on their wardrobe. A de-emphasis on clothing can also save money, as there will be less pressure to keep up with expensive trends and fashion. That's why I actually am a proponent of the school uniform system. I love it. I think school uniforms are great. Everybody looks the same. Everybody's wearing the same thing. Perfect. I remember when I was in school in the States and we didn't have in public schools school uniforms. It was always a headache trying to decide, what am I even going to wear? Right? Now, of course, my aunt was very, very strict. So trust me, you were not wearing any jewelry to school. You were not wearing anything that was too tight or too short or too whatever. There were expectations of how you were going to leave her house. And, I would see people get on the school bus, dress one way, and in their backpack, they would have a change of clothes because their parents were like, you're not wearing that. And they would turn around and dress like a totally different way and put on something different. Now, the parent can't be held responsible for that until they find out and then they do something about it. But, kids will still have a way of trying to do what they want to do. I must admit that. But regardless of that, I think that ultimately parents have a role to play. And if those parents really knew what their kids were doing, they'd be checking their backpacks before they left the house anyway, and not permitting them to have a change of clothes in their backpacks. But anyway, so, I had my little penny loafers. I was my aunt was very, I don't know how to describe the dress style. It was very conservative, but a little bit of like, conservative, but kind of like upper middle class. So you had to wear like your penny loafers. Like you couldn't wear, she wasn't into like, Jordans or flashy type tennis shoes or whatever. It was very, very prim and proper for her. And yeah, I think that it even, listen, people judge you, and this is what young people need to understand, based on your appearance. Now, let me pull up something. I haven't done this in a while because anytime I do like customer service training and I talk about the importance of first impressions, we have this discussion. How important are first impressions? And first impressions say a lot about you. And there's about 7 things that people get from a first impression. Everything from your social and economic status in life, your moral standards. So people will look at you. You've not yet opened your mouth or had anything to say, and they will judge you based on how you look. And they are judging your very morality. So there's like 7 things, and it was economic standard. Hold on, I'll soon tell you. But this is like the first 90 seconds of meeting an individual. You do what is called thin slicing, where basically you look at an individual and you quickly decide if they are someone of a decent morality, rich, poor, somewhere in between. Like, you make all of these assertions about an individual simply based on your first impression of them. So a person's moral compass, you might think, well, how the heck do you even come up with that? But this is a real situation in the first 90 seconds of meeting someone, oftentimes before they have even had to say anything to you. You are deciding who this person is. And you know the old saying that first impressions are lasting impressions? They are. So Sue says all kids have to wear the uniforms here. Evelyn said she wasn't even wearing underwear. What did I miss? Who wasn't wearing underwear? Okay, I think I missed that. I think I missed that one, Evelyn. But listen, I'm a proponent of having standards in schools, especially when it comes to school uniforms. So why else would you want the third reason? Dress codes in school settings reduce social conflict and peer pressure that might be associated with your appearance. So, in the US, they have a lot of that, a lot of bullying and whatever because of how people look. So it reduces that type of thing when you have everybody looking the same pretty much. So you don't have to worry about, you only want to wear black. So you're in the goth group of kids and people are going to judge you based on that. You have spiky hair. So people are going to judge you based on that. I mean, listen, I understand that people want to be unique and they want to have a sense of uniqueness about them. But in certain environments, it's important to actually downplay that difference to focus on why you're actually there. You're not in school to be a trendsetter or to be a fashionista or to, have your mark on the world, to be an Instagram star or a YouTube star or whatever. That isn't why you're there. You are there for the sole purpose of trying to get an education and trying to learn. And that being the case, that is your ultimate aim and your ultimate focus. So anything that distracts from that, in my opinion, is not a good thing. And if your dress code distracts from that, that's not a good thing. So students have indicated that a school dress code reduces the prevalence of certain behaviors, which are often expressed through wardrobe, such as violence or promiscuity. Speaking of promiscuity, so someone else posted saying that, okay, now that COVID is over, now that Delta is over, so they just posted this yesterday, can we please have a conversation about why young girls in private schools in particular, this was October the 6th, so let me read this comment. It was a public comment and it said, so now that schools are opening back tomorrow, Can someone explain to me why CIS, that's Cayman International School, and St. Ignatius female school skirts are so short? And this got a lot of comments. One person says, girl, I've been wondering the same thing for years. Saw one once that honestly was about 2 inches from where the legs meet. Wow. Another person says, I saw right up 3 when I was in Cayman Bay and was like, what? And somebody else said, I think I saw the same girl last week at Cayman Bay. So I don't know if it's just one person that's offending or if there was more than one. And this person confirmed that, yeah, it was last week that she saw this individual. And they said, I was in shock when I saw her. Not cool. Somebody else said, not just these 2 schools, but yes, it's sad to see. And it's because parents allow it. So we go back to this whole argument with parents allowing their children to do whatever they want. So one person said they're kids and they need to play. My daughter does after school and she plays on the obstacle trail all the time with long skirts. I think it becomes a problem. So a person responded to that and said, well, that's why they invented shorts and pants. These girls aren't even wearing shorts under the skirts, which is disturbing. Trust me. And again, we have no one to blame and no one to hold accountable for this type of behavior but the parents. So listen, you guys know I have a 4-year-old daughter. And from when she came out of diapers and she starts to wear, her little dresses and whatever, every time she wears a dress, she now knows at the age of 4 that she's got to put on shorts underneath the dress. And we have shorts, enough shorts that can last her for at least 2 weeks worth of outfits, although laundry is done every week, just in case. And they come in all different colors. You can buy the little packs. Amazon has them on sale, folks. They're not expensive. And so she has to understand, yes, she has on her underwear and she has to put on shorts. And sometimes she'll say, why do I have to wear shorts? And I have to break it down to her in language that a 4-year-old can understand. Because sometimes you're going to be playing or you're going to be sitting down, right? And it's important not to show your privates to anybody, intentionally or unintentionally, because obviously a 4-year-old wouldn't be doing that intentionally. But the point is, she's playing, she's sitting down with circle time or whatever it is they're doing. She's got her legs wide open and not paying attention. No. But this is the foundation that we have to set for our children from day one. So there are dress code expectations that even a toddler, a 4-year-old, has to learn. So by the time we get to high school, had you been enforcing this with your kids from day one, this wouldn't really be much of an argument. I'm in favor of having shorter hair. Tights under the dresses, yes. I don't know. This is what I'm saying, Sophia. They should still be there. We've got to teach our young children what is appropriate behavior and what isn't appropriate behavior. So yesterday, the conversation was focused on, the hair of some of the young men, some of them being very, very long. I think some of them could have been shorter, could have been better, well kept. And again, it's a distraction. Like I saw one young man trying to comb his hair. And I must say he was not in the boys to men group at all. Most of them were very, few of them had long hair, but most of them had short hair. And I saw him trying to put his hand through his hair. And I guess he had so much hairspray in the hair that when he was trying to do that, he couldn't even get his hand through it. I saw him struggling to do it. And then it kind of fell into his eye. And I'm thinking, I wonder if during class, how many times during the day he's trying to fix that hairstyle so it's not falling into his eye or whatever. Extremely distracting. So, yes, shorts underneath skirts long enough, or wearing shorts. You can take your skirt off, wear shorts and pants that you can play with. Sometimes it's a matter of economics why a skirt can be short, because maybe a parent can't afford to buy a new skirt every single year. And of course, kids are growing taller and taller. And so as they grow, the skirts are getting shorter and shorter. I don't think that's the issue at CIS, though. I mean, let's be very frank here. Parents at CIS pay thousands of dollars per month to send their kids to what is supposed to be the most expensive school in the Cayman Islands. I'm not going to say it's the best school, but it's certainly the most expensive. They can afford to buy uniforms that come down to a decent length. And so we always had in school, it had to, wherever you stood, you got your arm tests. So arms down, it had to come below the fingertips, as close to the knee as possible. And so parents who were allowing their children to walk out the door looking less than professional, less than smart, too tight, too short, are causing their children to bring unwanted attention to themselves. Now, one gentleman on that particular post said, I know one thing, my daughter won't be wearing some short skirts. And then some of the other comments, which were also supportive of, yeah, this isn't right. It was only a couple men that joined in the conversation, but listen to me. If you have a high school, middle school daughter walking around with super short shorts or a short skirt, and it is catching the attention of the women in the community, you can believe your bottom dollar. It is also catching the attention of the men in the community as well. And so we have had this conversation before about over-sexualizing your kids and the dangers of that. And so I feel like, once again, we need to be having the conversation. Well, as I often say, no matter how long it takes to get it right, we got to do what we got to do when it comes to protecting our children. And if we have to have this conversation a million times, then we have it a million times. You can't put a price tag on how important it is to try to protect your kids and, to ensure that they have every opportunity to focus on their academics, not be distracted by anything else, not even being subjected to men looking at them in a sexual way or catcalling at them or anything of the sort. And sometimes we put our children in harm's way and do not even appreciate what it is that we're doing. So parents, get your acts together. Try to get your children to focus on what is important in terms of their academics. It is important for them to be smartly dressed, professionally dressed as a student. And that does mean and does include the hairstyles. I understand the need to try to get your children to express themselves and to have a sense of personal identity. They can do that outside of school. So on the weekends, already my 4-year-old wants to paint her nails. And I got to tell you, Daddy's like, no, No 4-year-old is going to paint their nails around here. But she's a girl and she's a girly girl. You know how you can tell when even at 4, like some girls are going to be really girly girls and they're going to be they're like into everything sparkly and flashy and, yeah, she's going to be one of them, which is kind of funny because I wasn't really that type of girly girl, but she likes, I'm a princess, she says. She makes these proclamations and she is a princess and there's certain things that she wants. And of course, you got to be careful what you're exposing your kids to, even in terms of television watching, because she's sitting there watching Barbie, her little Barbie show, and she's like, oh, I want my hair to be like Barbie. And I'm like, irks. This is now the influences of media and other things that impact how our children see the world, how they think about themselves, and different things like this, right? So yes, she's thinking about Barbie. And she wants to be like Barbie. And I'm like, oh, okay. So as a compromise, because someone bought her a little nail polish set for Christmas, and she saw it, and of course she's like, I want to wear nail polish. I was like, oh my God. It's for kids, so it doesn't stay on. It washes off, like every time they wash their hands. So as a compromise, Dad said, all right, on weekends, you can put on your kitty nail polish. No makeup, no lipstick, none of that at the age of 4. And she will actually be like, oh, what day is today? And you're like, it's Thursday. Oh, okay. It's not the weekend yet, because she knows the weekend is Saturday and Sunday. So she looks forward to it. And I get it. I get that kids want to, be unique and enjoy life as children. They want to play dress up and all this kind of stuff. So Tracy, I think that for some kids, this could be the case. Keeping in mind that the school year has just started, I don't think that that's what's happening at CIS. I think that maybe they're using old uniforms, or somebody just isn't paying attention to the fact that that uniform is now a little bit too short. Hopefully the parents didn't order it too short, but let me be very frank and honest with you. There are a lot of parents who do not care how their children dress and how their children go to school. And whether those parents are at John Gray, Clifton Hunter, Cayman International School, St. Ignatius, it doesn't matter what school they go to. We were having this conversation yesterday. Are private schools any better than public schools? Well, in a lot of regards, a school is a school. It doesn't really matter. It's the parents and the tone that they set for their children of what is to be expected. So one PTA member was saying to me yesterday at a government school that, when they would have like the dress down day, like, okay, your kid can dress down for $5 and we're going to collect the money and donate it to like an NPO, whatever. It's a good cause. That a lot of those kids would come so ill prepared, like tank tops with no sleeves or anything, just the what do you call them? The boob tubes or whatever. So you're just covering their little breasts, short shorts, midriff showing, that the parents are like, take your $5 back, come and get your child, and please, by all means, don't send your child dressed like this ever again, even on dress down day. So I think that either some parents just don't care, or they themselves probably dress like that and they think it's okay. Alowick says, on dress codes, some global firms have started dressing down for work. So while a need appearance is still required, the overall conversation is changing about what level of dressing up is acceptable. And I totally understand that. Most office environments, you're not going in with a suit and tie and that sort of thing anymore. You still can wear like a polo shirt and a nice pair of slacks, sometimes even a nice pair of jeans, but there is still a dress code. There's still things that you cannot wear. I remember years ago when I worked at Maples and Calder, there was a constant conversation every once in a while. An email would go out about the dress code. And to be honest, most of the people that it was directed at, quite ironically enough, were the new workers who were coming in from the UK on a work permit. And so one day I'll never forget Travers, what's his name? Travers, what was his first name again? Oh, I can't remember. But he was one of the big shot partners at the time. I remember him sending out an email saying, please remember, you are now in the Cayman Islands and you're no longer working as a barmaid. And I was like, Erks. Well, he just admitted that they got a work permit to work as a legal secretary when in the UK, Anthony Travers, that was his name. When in the UK, they were probably just a barmaid for true. And it was a constant conversation that they were having. Like, can you stop dressing like this? It's not appropriate for the workplace and it's distracting. Well, I tell you what, folks, it was distracting the lawyers because a lot of them were getting into relationships with their secretaries and with their staff, even though they were married. And there was a couple of them that were like, whew. If Mall Road was around back in those days, they would have been front page coverage on the Mall Road, getting pregnant for the partner who already has a wife and children. Yes. Getting that promotion to partnership because you've been sleeping your way through the whole partnership, entourage of partners at the law firm. Those stories were not myth, they were true. So Irvelyn says, I let my 6 and 7-year-old grandkids. Irvelyn, you have grandchildren? Say what? Girl, I thought you were about to tell me your 6 and 7-year-old kids. Paint their nails in the summertime only, and they understand that. Yes. Sue says, so sad. They don't care on dress down days. They get themselves ready. Well, I mean, you can allow your child to get ready, but still. In fact, when the parent said that to me yesterday, I thought to myself, how do you even purchase those types of clothes for your kids? I mean, kids don't have money of their own. They're getting money from an adult. Most of them are not working. And even when they are, you're taking them shopping and you're going to say, okay, this is what's appropriate for you to buy and what isn't appropriate for you to buy. So why would that wardrobe, like where is a middle school or an elementary school kid going with a tube top? What parent would allow them to buy that? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So parents, this sits squarely on your shoulders. You need to address the issue of why your kids are having hair that's too long in school, why they're dressing with skirts that are too short, why they looked unkept. And I must say that despite the hair being highlighted yesterday, all of the kids that I saw at John Gray, I didn't notice any short skirts. None of them came to my attention anyway. They looked very presentable. They were well behaved for high school kids. So you guys will remember that, I think a few of you were like, oh, they're so well behaved today because Mall Road is there. No, I don't think so. I think they're generally, pretty good kids and they're well behaved kids. We as parents just have to do our jobs as parents. And so that requires molding them a little bit more when it comes to the whole dress code situation. All right, so final topic for today. Is quarantining. So someone shared with me yesterday this advert on EK Trade about a person who wants to quarantine. Now look at this, folks. This person posted an ad, said, I need a place to quarantine. $500 they're willing to pay for 16 days. And I'll be traveling to the Cayman Islands from Jamaica, but would love somewhere to live for just 16 days. If you have somewhere you can send me an inquiry, I would appreciate it very much. And so we got this, and I thought to myself, that's interesting. The only question I have in my mind is it permitted? And so I have been told that no, it's not permitted. And I didn't think that it would be. And a lot of people are saying, well, what's the difference between this and going in a hotel room? Well, you can't just go in a hotel room to quarantine. So there is a significant difference, right? And I think that maybe we are misguided in understanding how the process works with quarantining. So you have to quarantine either at a government facility, a government approved facility. And it's not just government approved in the sense that, oh, I'm going to go and just book a room at the Ritz or the local Airbnb and I'm good. There are certain checks and balances and measures in place that the travel time, now they're called, I think they have a different name now, but that are in charge of, yes, now it's travel time. What was it before? No, hold on. Let me tell you. It's changing from travel time to travel Cayman. There we go. So this is the new sort of agency or group that's going to handle some of these things. And we saw, government has said that Cayman Airways staff, which are largely not doing a whole lot of anything right now because there's not a whole lot of flights on, they will be pulled into this particular area. So when you say I want to self-quarantine, they have to carry out an assessment on your location. And remember now, you're supposed to be either a returning resident or work permit holders can come in. And I mean, this does beg the question of how a work permit holder returns if they don't have a place to live yet. The answer, obviously, is you have to quarantine at a government facility. Unless you already have accommodation set up for you. So we reached out to our government contacts. And they said, no, this would not be permitted. I could see why this would be a problem. Because first of all, where is this person going to be living for 16 days at $500? It is in all likelihood going to be a room. Like you might be able to get a room in Cayman for $500 for 16 days. And a room in a bigger house. So we've already checked with the persons responsible for this agency, and they said long ago, unfortunately, there's certain accommodations that do not work in terms of being suitable for a home quarantine. So tenement yards normally isn't going to work. If you're sharing a room in a house with other people, that's not going to work because that does not allow you to sufficiently self-quarantine unless everybody else in your household is agreeing to quarantine as well. So if someone is looking for a room to self-quarantine and wherever that room is located, the other people in that house and that structure are not willing to quarantine with them or unlikely to quarantine, or they have to go out and work and do all these other things, government is not going to approve a situation like that. And so a lot of persons are like, well, why is this such a big deal? It's not that it's a big deal. It's just that whoever Miss Marian Bennett is, she's got her name on here, she should know that this will not be allowed. So I don't know how she's coming to the Cayman Islands, if she's coming here in a work permit or what her situation is. But travel time, which is now Travel Cayman, have made it very, very clear that this would not be allowed. So work permit holders, if government has capacity and home isolation is not an option for them, then yes, you go into the government facility for the 16 days. And of course, if you're coming in on a work permit, you are having to do that. The employer is having to do that at their expense. Now, we know how some employers are. You guys make your staff pay for their very work permits. So they're going to be doing it as well, making you pay for your stay at the quarantine facility. So Sue has a good question. Do they need to own their apartment or house? Otherwise, it's government quarantine. Let me ask the question, actually. I don't know that they necessarily need to own it, but I think it does need to be a situation where they need to be returning to a location where they were previously. And we're going to get some clarification on this, because I think it is important to get some of these questions answered. So I am asking the questions, and we'll put up a little story on this later on, because people need to know. Knowledge and information is power. And if you don't understand something, you don't know something, we can't fault this woman for asking, because she probably just doesn't understand how the process is going to work. So I don't know, Sue, if it means that you have to own the property per se. She's saying that that's what her family were told by Travel Time. So we're going to find out. I don't know. I don't think it's legal ownership, but it's like, okay, even if you're coming back to stay with family, that family has to be prepared to, everybody in that household, to quarantine with you, or it simply isn't going to work. Good morning, Maureen. So we're going to get some clarification on it. But I think the fact that someone is having to search around for a quarantine facility online through a classified website is probably not a good idea. The location has to be vetted and pre-approved, because remember, everyone coming in now is supposed to be getting approval. So there should be some vetting and pre-approval in place before you get that stamp to say, yes, you can travel now to the Cayman Islands, and you're supposed to be producing that letter to the airlines before they allow you to purchase a ticket or to board the plane. Now, we did see a few weeks back that British Airways allowed someone to board the plane without having followed the correct protocol, and that is concerning that that happened. So we will continue to keep an eye on some of these questions so we can just ensure that people are getting the right information and they are doing the right thing based on the information that they have, right? All right. Okay, so today is Thursday, October the 8th. So that means that we will be having an evening show today. So I would invite you to tune in at 7 o'clock. We have a young lady who wants to join us on air about a bit of a situation that she's having with, well, she wants him to be her soon-to-be ex-husband. But he keeps filing these divorce papers because, you know, in the Cayman Islands, we have a fault-based divorce system. So it's not no fault. So in other words, when you file for divorce, you got to say why you're filing for divorce. And in his mind, he seems to think that that means that he can just say the most ridiculous stuff and make up things on the poor soon-to-be ex-wife. And that's okay. Well, the ex-wife who wants to divorce him, soon to be ex-wife, who wants to divorce him, is saying in principle, she has no issues with getting rid of him because it was a failed marriage before it even began. However, she is not going to agree to things that are not true. So when he's filing these affidavits with the court and lying about them, yeah, it's just not gonna work. Ugh. Why do people feel it necessary to lie? I don't even know. I don't even know. So we're going to, she has expressed an interest in coming on our program. And we are going to sort out when she's going to come on. Maybe that's like a Fab Friday kind of topic. We need to have a segment for, like, you know, just ridiculous days news or something. Because this is definitely one of those stories where this guy is like, whoo, he is crazy. So I'll let you guys know when that one is coming up. She is overseas, so we do have to sort out. I think she might be in the same time zone now, but we'll have to sort out all the details. So yes, Karina, trust me, the most lies. I mean, the dude, he already had one petition that the court turned down. You guys remember this case because he was trying to allege fraud to get the marriage annulled. And you know what would have been so much easier? This is where sometimes the less you say, the better. And definitely telling the truth is the way to go. If he had merely said, Your Honor, because there are certain grounds on which you can get a marriage annulled. And one of those is the marriage hasn't been consummated. It's as simple as that. You've not had sexual relations. And if you haven't had sexual relations, then you can get the marriage annulled. That's a fact. If he would just admit that they had not even consummated the marriage, he doesn't have to go into any details as to why, because then everybody's going to be looking side-eyed at him thinking, what is wrong with you? You've got this beautiful wife. Why haven't you been able to consummate the marriage? You did come together at some point. But you know what? The court doesn't even care. All you have to say is the marriage hasn't been consummated. Give me my annulment, and boom, you would have gotten it. You don't have to lie that you've been defrauded by this woman and bring up now in a regular divorce proceeding all of these other things. Because the end result is it's just going to backfire against you. Because now this poor woman feels it necessary to send us the divorce documents, which we have now seen. He even went as far as mentioning us in his divorce petition. So he ran real quick about the publication that we did on him, as though somehow that adds any merit to the breakdown of the marriage. Son, the marriage was broken down long ago. In fact, before you even got married, you should have never gotten married. So trying to add CMR to the petition now isn't really helping your case. That's not what the judge is going to be looking at. It's like, make this simple. Why are you making yourself look like a first-rate jackass? So anyway, we'll decide what day she'll be coming on the show. I'm sure there'll be 600 of you tuned in for that one. So we'll give you lots of advance notice to mark your calendar. Sheep's and wolves clothing, folks. This is where people pretend to be something that they're not. They love to jump up behind a pulpit, pretend to be men and women of God, and they're like the biggest sinners ever. I mean, they're worse than people who are not even in the church. They're just pretending, and their lives are just a complete lie. It is absolutely shocking. So anyway, that's one of the things that we've got coming up for you. We also working on a story about a development that is going into the Newlands area that a lot of the residents of that area are not particularly happy about a commercial development in a residential area. And they're like, how is this being allowed? This is a low density residential area. And when you buy homes in certain neighborhoods, you don't expect to see a shopping plaza just like pop up. Well, that's what's happening. They're seeking planning approval, and we know planning and their approval, they'll probably get it. So we're going to be bringing that story to you as well, because quite a number of the residents have reached out to us about their concerns. And we've been working on that, trying to reach the developers. And, you know, why do you feel that there's a need to put another plaza in the Newlands area? I think we're covered. We're pretty much well covered, you know? But it is what it is, good folks. And so we will continue to bring you those stories that matter the most to you. Stay tuned, be safe. We wish you guys a beautiful day, productive day. Oh, and my apologies. We did want to send out condolences to the family of Mr. Bob Daigle. Most of you will know him as the karate instructor. He had his own karate school for a number of years. So he actually came to the Cayman Islands from Boston in January of 1987. And he opened the Cayman Karate Academy and literally taught thousands of students from May 1987 to May of 2001. And Mr. Daigle has passed away, unfortunately, from cancer. I don't actually know how old he was, but I'm thinking he might have been close to 60, but he was still relatively young. So a lot of people cannot believe it. People are shocked. I mean, this is a guy who was always fit as a fiddle, obviously, you know, as a karate instructor. That was his life. Many of your kids or grandkids may have gone to his academy. He's won a number of events in the martial arts arena, as well as having run a successful martial arts business here in the Cayman Islands. So we extend our condolences to his family and certainly to a lot of his students as well, who I think were just really upset to hear about his passing. Very, very sad. Super nice guy. I think in the last couple of years, he had gotten involved in real estate. So he was actually a Cereba member, and he, you know, worked in the real estate industry here in the Cayman Islands as well. So Bob Daigle, unfortunately, has passed away. So folks, we'll be back at 7 o'clock this evening. Please stay tuned. We, again, wish you a pleasant day. Work hard, play hard, be safe whenever you do it. Yes, Karina, rest in peace to him. And we'll see you guys back here at 7 p.m. this evening.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.